that was really, really eye-opening.
Yeah.
To see the struggles, but also inspirational as to how independent she is and how much these tools actually make a difference to people.
The stairs are constructed in such a way that you need like 1.5 step before you get to the next step.
From top of mind, you know how much people increased font size on iOS, right?
About 60% of the people have a larger font enabled.
Wow.
Yes. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
No, I would like people just to think you're a lifeline.
So today we have a really nice topic, accessibility, a topic I really love. I did some accessibility myself at the KLM Royal Dutch Airlines like 9 years ago. So I'm really passionate about it. And today we have two guests.
Two experts, yeah.
Two experts, yeah. Maybe you would like to introduce yourself, Leanne?
I'm Leanne. I'm predominantly the iOS developer in the Shop Foundation space. I've been involved with accessibility since 2003, actually. That was my introduction to it. Do you want a whole history?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So when I started working at a company, we had an internal call center. And I ended up needing to fix it we had 2 visually impaired colleagues. And back then we had to still buy those really expensive dongles. You couldn't just have the accessibility tools on your desktop. It was actually a specific dongle that you had to plug in. So I couldn't, it was so expensive that we couldn't get one for our department to fix the stuff. So I had to shadow her for a week and sit with her. And after hours, I could have access to her dongle. And that was really, really eye-opening to see, the struggles, but also inspirational as to how independent she is and how much these tools actually make a difference to people. So that's why it's always lived with me since then. It was one of my first introductions, never ever thought about accessibility, never even had the topic. So, and
for then on, you're forever motivated to make it better.
Yes.
Nice. An OG accessibility champion.
Pretty much.
We have the perfect candidate in the room today.
I think you made the right choice.
All right.
Next, Niels Peter.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Niels Peter, working at Bol since 2012. Currently in the position of a lead product design in Shop Foundation. And in my position, I take care of the design system for B2C. And while working on the design system, well, we also try to make it as accessible as possible. Yeah. I think the first time I touched the topic of accessibility, I think was in 2019, a bit before that, 2018 maybe, when we started redesigning our current checkout. And then, the project lead of the checkout project, she said like, well, let's make it as accessible as possible. It was not really like a goal of Bol, but it's really like something a challenge we set ourselves. And I think that was really nice. And then I started learning more about it and took some courses and trainings, and here we are. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's still a really cool topic, like accessibility, especially in tech. And maybe I'm curious if one of you two could answer, like, what is accessibility, or what does it actually mean for the people that are not, as tech savvy as we are?
What does it mean?
Or how would you describe it?
It's making things usable for every audience, regardless of who they are or what their impairments are.
Yep. Yeah, cool one.
Yeah, because often what you see, when we talk about digital accessibility, but also accessibility in general, like for instance, take the stairs in our restaurant here at Bol. Yes, it's stairs, but are they really accessible for all to access the restaurant? No, because if you're in a wheelchair, you cannot access the restaurant via the chair. But also, it's not really accessible because, the stairs are constructed in such a way that you need like 1.5 step before you get to the next step. So in the end, yes, it's a stair. You can reach the restaurant, but not by all. And I think that also translates to digital. Yeah. Yes, we have a website, we have apps, but they are not accessible to all. And I think that's in the end what we try to achieve.
So who is actually the audience who will benefit from accessibility? Because you talked about people who have maybe trouble because they are in a wheelchair. But for web, what is the audience who we can help with accessibility?
Well, I think that's where you need to not think about that, because
Okay.
accessibility helps everybody.
Mhm.
You have small disabilities, you have large disabilities, you have situational disabilities. So as you get older, your eyesight fades, you have color contrast issues, things like that. So when approaching accessibility or anything, you're actually helping every single person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually nice. So you make things better for people with disabilities, and actually you make it better for everyone.
Mhm.
So win-win situation.
Yeah, but it's so nice, and I think it's also super important as a developer, but everyone in product would really have this on mind, because honestly, when I started, especially when I joined your team, actually, you were always the person in our team, well, pointing out like, yeah, but will this be accessible, or how will this work for people that, for example, are visually impaired? And I'm just really curious about it, because I see you have a lot of passion for it. Like, where did that come from, or where did that originate from?
That's from my initial
Mhm.
experience with the blind person or blind people.
Yeah.
But I've also since then integrated. I attend a lot of things regarding the accessibility space. I had a really inspirational talk with a guy that actually had cognitive issues, and he couldn't access our website. Was too much for him to access. It's too much information in one screen. So back then he actually used the mobile website.
Mhm.
And when the website was redesigned, I actually asked, could we have a flag or a switch or a setting to make the mobile site on the desktop? Because you can still do it via the tools, but then it's still a small screen, which doesn't really help. But because I've always been involved in this area and sought people out, I want everybody to have the same opportunities.
Mhm.
And then I've also had some family members be in accidents and have things happen. So
Yeah.
I'm always surrounded by it.
Yeah, and I think there's also a really big misconception in how big of an impact it makes on the number of people, because there's so much people that are not for brightness settings or color contrast and all these kind of things. It impacts such a big group, so it's always stunning to me how much impact you actually make with making it accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Which is crazy important. How's that for you, Niels?
Yeah, I also think that's really well. When I look at it from a design perspective, like it's also the responsibility, I think, from as a designer. I think you are a problem solver in the beginning. So there's a problem, you design a solution, and I think that solution should be accessible. I think so. So I think it's one of the things you always should take into account if you want to strive for a certain level of quality in your product.
But also designing accessible things, you simplify.
Yeah,
You don't over-engineer, you don't
No, true.
over-complicate.
Mhm.
yeah. You really get to the core
Mm.
of the problem and design a solution that matches that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about you as an engineer, trying to create accessible experiences, and you from a design perspective. So how do you guys meet? How because these are two disciplines. I can imagine, there's some work needed to make it work together.
Yeah, I think it's also really important to realize that we all have a stake in making things accessible. So it's not only design, not only development. It's also project management, higher management, and it really has to become like a part of our way of working. When I look at our way of working, I think we need to create like a feature or a component to enrich the design system, and then often it starts with a proposal from design, I think, and then we have an early check-in on which way we want to head. Like, okay, this is our preferred solution. What do you think about this and that? From design, we recently created like a checklist, which we can take, and then we can. It's not like sufficient to meet all the criteria that are set, but at least we can. We tick off the low-hanging fruit, so to say.
Yeah.
And then I think during the implementation we talk about how we can make it accessible, right?
Yeah. So I think it's a collaboration more than one versus the other or
No.
one after the other. Sometimes design needs some tweaking, sometimes development needs some tweaking. It really is a collaborative effort.
Mm.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And how do you know if it's actually is accessible? After you did the design, you've done the engineering.
You run it through the tests.
Yeah.
There's specific audits you can run.
Yeah.
There's tools for that. I hope every single person is doing that after they've done some development.
Would love to.
I strive for that, and I take one day in a month and I actually go through our entire app consistently with voiceover. I sometimes actually switch my screen off as well, because that's also a whole different challenge.
That's amazing. Yeah. And do we also gather feedback from different communities or different people that are using it in a certain way?
We've gotten feedback from audits. We've had some user testing, which was really valuable.
Yeah.
And we get feedback there as well. And I took a whole list and immediately fixed the stuff. So
Yeah, I think that's really cool. But I think also looking from a developer perspective, it's so nice to finally get that awareness, which sounds super selfish maybe, but we once did a test here at Bol, and then we did the exact same thing you just described. So was not able to see the screen, but I had to navigate through the website, and we did that together. And it was so weird and so different to me, like just putting on a screen reader, that it really, it really got me like, whoa, is this actually the way that people use the website? And is it on that level? Like at that point in time, it was really not good.
no.
And I think, I don't want to say it should be a mandatory thing, but I think a lot of people should be able to really get the experience so that they are able and to really see like what it actually means if you're not able to, use the way that the majority of people use it.
Yeah, I really think that attending UX research like we did here at Bol is really powerful, because you can tell people about how difficult it is for people with a disability to use the platform. But when you are really watching people struggle, performing a task that will take us like 3 minutes and they take for almost an hour to order a product, and then are still hesitant, like, okay, is this the right product? Is it actually the color I want? I think that's really powerful, and I think that's what I also would advise to people. Like, if you have the ability to attend a research like that, please go and
watch them back.
Or watch them back, and also point your product management to that session. Please attend and rewatch.
I think that's very good advice, to let people know how other people struggle with your product. So you want to be proud of what you create. And if you see this, it's a wake-up call. Yeah, it hurts, in a good way, so that you want to do something about it. Yeah, indeed. So do you have any other tips and tricks? Because I can imagine people listening who think, okay, wake-up call, we might need to do something about our product. What are things you can do to...
I think having an audit session like what we did in Pathfinder, take your page, take your OPEX, run through it with some of these assistive tools, see how it works. It doesn't have to take an entire day. You can book a morning session for your whole team during office day and go through it and just experience what it's like.
Feel the pain.
Or not.
Or not, preferably not, of course. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I'm always also, like what I do for my personal projects, and it's really tech savvy again, but I do create components in a certain way that it's not an option anymore to make it accessible. You just have to do it, otherwise it doesn't comply. And I'm always really interested in like why, for example, HTML or something in iOS, why it's not supported like that. That it's just, you can only make it this way. This is just needed, but it's always an option. And I still don't get it why that's a...
I think it's because a lot of the things like HTML, the iOS platform, the Android platform, they already have support for accessibility. It's not always great. In some cases, it is brilliant. In other cases, it needs some tweaking. So there is always that basic support, but in some cases, if you have a complex view or a hierarchy, then you need to do some tweaks to it. So nothing is inaccessible from start. It does have basic accessibility. It's just whether that accessibility is usable or not is a different story.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that was really something that stood me by in research. I think someone showed how they shopped in the Eonor platform, but they were not able to order it. Which is crazy, actually, if you think about it. But
It's a
it's
crucial step.
Yeah, it's definitely both for them, but also for us, of course.
Yeah.
So it was just stunning to see, like, huh? Is this really a thing? But yeah, these things can make big differences, though.
Yeah.
And how is because you said you worked on it with KLM.
Yeah, I did. So we have also sell tickets to the United States, and they were a bit earlier with the law. So next year in the Netherlands or in Europe, you will have an accessibility law where you need to comply to the WCAG 2 something regulations. So we had that in 2015, and that's actually kind of the same experience. First, we didn't know what it was. We didn't realize what accessibility was. I dove into it and really learned a lot. And to create buy-in, I invited the blind user to show the business, okay, this is what our site is doing. Actually similar to your story. And then the eyes opened and we were like, oh shit, we really need to do something about it. And then we only had 2.5 months to fix everything. So which was a really tight deadline.
That's really tight.
That was really tight, but we got a buy-in from everyone. So like
that's good.
Designers and engineers were like, oh, this is our job, our pride, our job pride to make it good for everyone. So they were in, and the business also was interested because you could sell more because your market will become bigger, right? If you can reach more people who can sell. So that was an interesting program.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And also I think, was it last year or the year before, but Bol, the website, was being tracked in an audit, right? And we scored pretty high, I think. Do you still know the position?
Third,
nice.
Yeah, so they have this annual test by level. And then they, in the run-up to 2025, when we have, the start of this European Accessibility Act, they test like the top 15 shops, e-commerce shops in the Netherlands, whether they meet the WCAG criteria, yes or no. So we scored third position last year. So really nice, yeah.
Nice champagne.
Big kudos to you guys. Yeah, it's crazy. Because how did you?
I think it's kudos to everybody because
a
lot of teams have been involved, also doing stuff. So
true.
It's credit to everybody.
I fully agree. and because you guys were a little bit more maybe on the project management side, I would say, or like how we would organize this in Bol. How did we go from like the lower position or the worst website into something that's more accessible right now? You guys, did you change something?
I think at Bol, looking back a few years, I think we first paid attention to accessibility within silos. And now it's more like that we look at this topic from, more like a domain level. So I think that's an improvement within the company, I would say. And I think we got there by, first paying more attention to awareness, like raising the awareness level across teams, across domains. And then, we worked our way up. And then also we paid attention to attend trainings, specifically on app. I know there was a session for app designers. But also, people with a personal development budget, can attend session, of course, on this topic. And I think the combination of that, resulted like in a top 3 position.
Okay, the secret sauce.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It did help that we had this deadline hanging over us that we have to be compliant.
Yeah, that's always good motivation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So so you've made it to the top 3. You did amazing work, collaborated, trained, and you did a lot of work with the teams. So what are your next steps to make it to number 1?
Good question.
For me, I think it's really important that I don't need to be number 1. I would love that. But I rather want every person that works in any piece of this organization lives with accessibility. And it's not an afterthought. For me, that would be a bigger achievement than getting to number 1.
Yeah, agree.
Because then number 1 will come.
Confidence.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so that it really becomes like a part of our way of working instead
Yeah.
of like an incidental thing. Like, okay, oh, now we have full focus on accessibility. No, it should become truly part of our way of working.
Mhm.
And that there is continuous improvement. Because, yes, we fix stuff, but on the other hand, we also build new stuff. And
Right.
especially, you do not want to create more stuff that is inaccessible while fixing stuff on the other hand. So
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not the first position that should drive us,
Yeah.
but well, the continuous improvement, and that is really is a topic that that a lot of people within Bol can relate to, because it's not only design, development, product management, but well, everyone has a stake in this topic. Yeah.
Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, indeed, and I like it that you if you build it in your way of working instead of an afterthought. I think it's also much easier to build accessible products immediately instead of trying to fix it after the fact.
Yeah, I always say accessibility is like security.
Ah, yes.
If you do it after the fact, it's never great.
No,
Mm.
indeed. Wise words.
Yeah, but I think for me personally, I always try to keep track of it, but it's always hard for me to make a decision into what actually would be better to use. So just give an example. We had a big discussion, like on the search pages from Bol, whether you first go to the filters, if that's more important, or if you first go to products. Like, what do people think is more important there? And all like these kind of discussions, I think are really hard to make from a developer perspective. But you should really
That's true.
check and test with people that actually use it.
Yep.
And I think that's already step one, to really make sure that you keep it on your mind. And step two is really to test it and to get feedback and to really see, does this actually improve it, or do we just check the criteria? Because it's still a list, but it should also be actually really usable.
Yeah, and I'm also, I think that's very valuable, but also don't just look at a checklist.
Correct.
Because looking at a checklist, you're only doing the bare minimum. You should also go, okay, we've done the bare minimum, but what other things can we improve upon besides that? I mean, I know when people think accessibility, they think blind, mental handicaps, physical handicaps, things like that. But you also have, for example, dyslexia. And just changing the font, for example, can make a huge difference, because some fonts completely mess up and then they can't tell the difference in characters. So even small things like a font change or a slight gradient color change, those can also make huge differences. It doesn't have to be a huge overall. You can continuously keep improving. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah. And that was funny to me because you were really good with all the numbers, and I think from top of mind you know how much people increased font size on iOS, right?
It's about 30. Well, actually, about 60% of the people have a larger font enabled.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. Amazing.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So that's always interesting to me to see that we're making the design pixel perfect accordingly with the design. But honestly, personally, I do sometimes check it when I design or create something, but I was not aware that there were these big numbers of people and actually not using the designer we're designing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not the largest font. It's just slightly it's mostly slightly larger or just one above that as well.
Yeah.
So it's not. I always test worst case scenario with the biggest font, and then it also, for example, like in the app, I switch from a grid tile, the grid, if you're in the largest font, to a list, because the grid you can only then see one letter at the largest font, which doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I think you really touched something interesting, Tim, because I think that's also a tip for other companies, but also for other teams maybe within Bol. Like, always combine like an audit with user research, because in the research you really see how users use your product, and the audit is really like a checklist. Okay, is it compliant according to this 57 criteria? Yes or no? Does it meet? But something that can meet the WCAG criteria can also be not usable in the end, because you can still implement it in such a way that it's not usable anymore. So I think it's really important to use the combination of the both. Yeah.
Great advice, I think.
And we do have partners for the user research. So I would advise every product, take advantage of it, have your product tested, get that feedback.
Yep. Yeah, it's always really insightful insights. So I really love that as well.
Yeah, I think very inspirational, guys. It's really. I hope this also will motivate a lot of other people to do the check, to work on it, and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, to really start having the awareness. I think that's definitely step one, and
that's
then you can have a look into how good or how maybe bad we're currently performing, and how can we make this actually way better for people.
And you will have to, right? So next year.
Yes, we have to. I think the difficulty with the European Accessibility Act is like, okay, it's this European legislation, and then for each country, they have like make it their own. Mm-hmm. But I think that's still quite fake, and I think that
it is very vague.
That really also the government, they need to comply, but also the government does not comply, which is of course a bit strange because.
But the governmental websites had to comply before us.
They already had to.
Yeah.
But if you look at the statistics, a lot of the government websites do not comply. But there is no
penalty.
No penalty or whatsoever. But there will be for e-commerce.
Yeah.
But because the law is not really like set in stone, it's still like a lot of uncertainty, and I think that also does not really help people to take action.
Yeah, there's certain of the criteria that is black and white. So, for example, like color contrasts, that has to comply. But as you say, there's others there's a really big gray area that you can play around in and not comply at all, but you're still okay because it's written in that way.
Yeah, indeed. As you said, it's the combination of applying the rules and also actually testing the user experience. So I can imagine that you can do some automated test as a government to test some sites. You will find some things, but to actually user test it to find the real big bugs, that will be a lot of work, I think, for the governments. They might not be there yet.
Yeah, and it's also strange that there is no party yet assigned to really control and to actually give the penalty. So I think there is a lot of people still like, okay, is it needed to take action now? Yes, it is. But what is the risk? So it's like this vacuum we're in right now, and I think that doesn't help the topic. No,
it's still a bit of an afterthought.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I think it's more important. Well, of course, we now focus on legislation. Yeah, but that's of course not the only thing we should talk about, because
I hope not.
No, there is way more that we get from being more accessible. I think if we should focus on that, and then legislation, yes, of course, that comes second.
That aids our argument to do it.
Correct.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, it should never be the starting point, but it's nice that it creates some movement around it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, I would like people just to think you're a lifeline, because some people are confined in a certain space in a certain area, and these technologies and these assistive things are a lifeline and create independence. It's a lifeline.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a higher purpose than checking the box from the government.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's still really, really cool and really inspiring topic, and I really love the effort you guys both are putting in. The passion, it really shows that you guys are having for this topic. So I think it would be really nice to thank you for being on this podcast today. And we would love, I think, to share a couple links maybe. So maybe you get some of the criteria, but also some nice websites where you can educate yourself.
Tools.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that would be lovely. And we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, indeed. And also thank you for being ambassadors for accessibility.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Thanks, guys.